What are your thoughts on medically assisted death? My grandma was 89 and wasn't dying of anything in particular. She didn't have cancer or dementia or anything. But her memory was slowly failing and her body was generally falling apart from old age and a leg injury from 50 years prior. She had been a widow for 14 years. She was lonely and in pain all the time. And her family lived across the ocean, so we couldn't see her as much as we'd want to. There was nothing actively killing her. But she did not want to be alive anymore. She wasn't depressed. Just old and in pain and ready to be done. She was able to go to a place in Switzerland with all 4 of her children and take a pill to end her life while her children sang to her and she looked out at the mountains. We all got to say goodbye to her and she got to be completely in control of the end of her life. I can only hope that if I am ever in that situation, then world will be kind enough to let me close my own exit as beautifully and peacefully as my grandma did. I just went through this with a good friend in Canada. He had a glioblastoma and was given 3 to 6 months to live. Ultimately, he lived for 15 months. But he wanted to be sure he could end his life when things got bad for him. So he made the necessary preparations. I'd long known he'd made these plans. I wasn't sure how I felt about it. But as I was caring for him for the last 6 weeks of his life, I got to witness the process firsthand. Long story a bit shorter. Towards the end, my friend could no longer walk or speak. He could understand everything you said to him, but he couldn't find the words to reply intelligently. In his frustration, he made it clear that he was ready. So we explicitly asked him if he was ready to die. He said yes. The next day 2 nurses came to his home. They talked to him and confirmed that he wanted to end his life. So, while sitting in his favorite recliner, they put in an IV. His immediate family and I sat with him. The nurses administered medication that made him fall asleep. Then they administered a second medication that stopped his breathing. In less than 5 minutes he was gone. I don't know if I'd have the courage to make the decision my friend did. But I didn't experience his suffering. Being present for him as he ended his life has convinced me that having the option to end your life on your own terms is the absolute right thing to do. There's no reason someone should have to continue to suffer when they know all they have to look forward to is more suffering. I'm very grateful that my friend had the option available to him. Had he been in my state in the US, that wouldn't have been possible. But it should be. It should be a right for every human to choose when terminal. We euthanize our pets but not our loved ones. We allow our loved ones to suffer miserably at the end of life. I was a hospice nurse and saw the suffering firsthand. It is inhumane to allow that. Mercy to those in pain. My grandmother passed away last week with a medically assisted death. She had cancer that had spread to her brain and was given a few weeks to a few months to live. From what family members said, she was deteriorating fast. She made the decision to have the procedure done as she wanted to end her time here with dignity. The appointment was made, doctors consulted, and paperwork drawn up. 10 days later, 2 medical professionals came by her house where she was spending time with her children. It was done quickly and comfortably. Nana left peacefully on her own accord, in the comfort of her own home. And while she was still more or less herself, it was very strange to have a time and a date looming. But it also allowed me to set aside that time to be alone and hold a small vigil of my own. I'm currently in another country and couldn't get back. She lived in Canada, where this service has recently been made more accessible. And I'm all for it. If it helped my Nana, it could help so many others. I have a degenerative brain disease and would very much like to die with some dignity left. So I'm all for it. What is your biggest non-academic, non-work-related accomplishment? Managed to strike out the gym teacher during a softball match. Not that exciting. But I'm still pretty proud. Winning a blue ribbon at a state fair for my strawberry jam. My husband loves to brag about it. And it makes me feel pretty special when he does. Learned and can play piano pretty well. My old band got played on a local radio station a few times. When I was a kid, I saw a guy passed out drunk on the side of the road. Neither of my parents noticed. So I said something. We went back and my dad went to check on him. It was around 20 degrees Fahrenheit out and he was wearing a thin jacket and pajama pants. My dad, who is a paramedic, told me I quite possibly saved his life that night. Edit. Worded weirdly. An artist at a major animation studio saw my fan art and shared it on their Tumblr. They commented on how funny they thought it was. That was years ago, but it felt great. What do you wish was illegal? Hi. I'm X. We're trying to reach you regarding your car's extended warranty. Your credit score goes down because you canceled a credit card. Companies making it really difficult to cancel things. Especially subscriptions. I think the process to subscribe to something should be exactly the same as the process to cancel it. I'm looking at you, Spotify. Online adverts featuring large "click here to download" buttons next to the actual download link, which is generally much smaller. Convenience fees for online ticket purchases. Why am I getting charged for saving on paper, ink, and everyone's time? Printer ink being ridiculously expensive for no reason. What are the unwritten rules for new Reddit users? Don't tell anyone your real name on Reddit and don't tell anyone your Reddit name IRL. AMAs, Ask Me Anything, will inevitably be long over by the time you see them. Lurk more. If you join, contribute to a subreddit that exists for fans of a thing to express their fondness of the thing. Do not tear the thing apart without a heck of a well-written post, comment that would be accepted. For a university writing class. For an example, not everyone likes cats and dogs. Some due to specific reasons. Some just because. And that is okay. What is not okay is for people to go on our cats or our dogs to try to make people sad out of spite. Don't post pictures of a safe unless you've already opened it. Although you see everyone and their brother publicly thanking kind Redditors for their gold as post edits. You don't have to. You can thank them through private message and if you were awarded anonymously. Don't worry about it. No one is thinking you got awards and aren't thankful. What's this chapter of your life called? The fucking. The plot thickens, owing to my weight gain. You may refer to me as plot. Stagnation. Cruise control. I have no idea what I'm doing. Why writing a book is more complicated than I expected. Lawyers, solicitors. What is the strangest or oddest law that's won a case for you? There was a case here in Hawaii that got thrown out like this. Someone got pulled over because the police saw she had way too many passengers in the car. Then they noticed she was drunk. Open and shut case. Well, apparently in Hawaii, there's no law defining the maximum number of passengers in a private vehicle. So the issue was that all the extra passengers weren't wearing seat belts. Well, this failed also. Because the law only says that every available seatbelt needs to be in use. If you have 6 passengers and only 5 seatbelts, there's nothing at all illegal about the 6th being unrestrained. So, since there was no probable cause to pull her over in the first place, even though she was indefensibly drunk, the whole thing got thrown out. Hawaii has some very counterintuitive laws. If your truck has seats installed in the bed, your passengers must be buckled up. If not, they can just party back there. while anyone in the cab unbuckled would get you a major ticket. People regularly ride down the freeway in truck beds while sitting in lawn chairs. I won a case where the defendant, New York City, tried to exploit a really stupid law, which I was able to use to win the case. This was a slip and fall case where my client had tripped on a piece of broken sidewalk outside of the Natural History Museum and shattered her arm and wrist. The law is that a property owner is responsible for the sidewalk directly outside of their property. The theory being, even if they can't fix it, they have a duty to warn people about hazards and mark the area off. The museum was owned by the city. There's another concept called sovereign immunity, which is that governments can't be sued without their consent. So the city had passed a very, very stupid law that they would be exempted from the rule that they can be sued for sidewalk injuries unless you can show they were on notice of hazard. Meaning, you would have to show that you informed the Secretary of State, Governor, Mayor, etc. of the exact specific crack in the sidewalk before the injury occurs. And you had to do so in writing with ample time for the city to remedy it. 180 days in advance IIRC. Under normal circumstances, this is impossible because no one anticipates tripping on the sidewalk 180 days in advance with the foresight to write a letter to the mayor about that specific crack. Luckily, someone did have that foresight. And there was a nonprofit called Big Apple Maps which would go around the city and with maps of government property and record with insane specificity each and every crack in the sidewalk, pothole, protrusion, and other hazard, and then publish these maps while serving copies on the government, with the express purpose of combating sovereign immunity defenses in slip and fall cases against the government. I got a hold of one of these maps and visited the site. And I was able to take pictures of the section of the sidewalk where my client fell. And you could see newly placed concrete over the area in the exact position indicated on the map, showing where the sidewalk had been repaired after my client slipped. Basically, the government's attorney brought up the sovereign immunity defense and outlined all of the stupid steps I would have needed to go through to overcome their motion to dismiss. My response was, "Oh, you mean this?" and gave them the map. Immediate settlement. 47 U.S.C. 227. B. Restrictions on use of automated telephone equipment. Law student working at law firm. We have a fax machine that gets tons of spam faxes. Our chief partner has a vendetta against spam, and he uses it to give us practice in researching and writing petitions. So we catalog each fax, send replies to take us off the list, document everything and wait for them to fax us again. Then we follow up with a FCC complaint and demand letter. A couple times this has ended up with the person getting mad and sending us retaliatory faxes. Black sheets of paper. If they stop sending, we don't do anything. But we've gone to small claims a couple times and gotten $500 per page a couple times. We also got someone trying to sell drugs through fax, but we just turned that over to the police. Over 10 years ago, I had been at fault for rear-ending someone else. I had no insurance and my license had expired. I don't think I need to mention that I was in a very destitute, low place in life, struggling with almost every conceivable aspect of living. The cop was very kind as we talked, but wrote me a ticket for it all. One was kind of a fix-it ticket about my suspended license. I sorted that out in the days after and nothing came of that ticket. The cop had mentioned that he had to write the insurance ticket, but to take it into court and get it lowered. I was desperate to try and get my $800 insurance ticket lowered because I couldn't afford something like that. So I took the cop's advice. I went into traffic court weeks later, and when it was my time to chat with the judge in front of everyone there, the judge looked at the ticket, stopped me and said, I would like to use Mr. South Seattle's case as an example to the gallery. I almost died. He went on. This is a court of law. But it is also a court of fairness. It seems as if the officer didn't write the date of the incident in the ticket. I can't hold Mr. South Seattle accountable to this. My jaw dropped. I stood there. The judge told me I was free to go twice before it registered. I'm pretty sure that cop deliberately didn't write the date on that ticket. Thanks, officer. The Canadian Interest Act specifies that all interest must be specified in a per annum percentage. If it is not, it's struck down to 5% simple interest per year. The number of lenders and creditors who try to pull off a 4% monthly compound interest, but aren't familiar with that provision of federal law. My brother is a lawyer. He got a DUI charge dropped for a client. Guy gets pulled over. Cop asks him to step out to perform the sobriety test after he admits to having consumed some amount of alcohol. He complies, but after stepping out of his car asks the officer if it's okay for him to reposition his vehicle to move it further away from the road because he feels uncomfortable being that close. The cop obliges. Apparently the charge got dropped because the officer willingly let an intoxicated individual operate a motor vehicle.
Subscribe, my brothers.